All right. Hey, Joey, thank you so much for recording a video with all of your questions and thoughts. That makes it so much easier for us to have really good communication and figure out what we want to do. So technical things. Because you sent me so much information and it's so useful, I'm going to try to record this in a format that I could throw it up on the channel without too much editing. So if that's okay with you, let me know. I'll ask and make sure that's cool before I do it. But what I'm doing here is I'm playing your video. I'm recording that audio through a microphone, so it's a little bit sketchy. It just makes it way easier for me to not have to switch audio sources 20 times during video. So if your audio isn't perfect from your video, that's why. Just an explanation on that. But I tested it, it seems okay. So let's jump into it. For anyone else watching, Joey is currently, I think you said the best MA2 player in your state, and consistently putting up 900 rated rounds. Just put in a lot of work on putting, but still having some struggle with mechanics in drives and is looking for more distance. All right, so let's jump in with Joey's little intro.
All right. So in my swing right now, there's a few things that I know are wrong. Obviously, you can't see my feet. I'm going to not be focusing on my feet for this. You tell me what you want about my feet. But what I've noticed is just the same thing. It's when I go back, the disc flares up, and I come through, I drop the elbow, and I've got this like flare. It's like this swooping that I can't control. I try reaching out like this, and as you said, that kind of aligns the elbow and allows me to get this direct plane. But if I come through like that, it comes out on a steep, and the angle doesn't work for me at all. I've been looking at pro form, and this is the one thing I wanted to really run by you. I'm looking at, I'll drop this photo of Eagle on top right now. If you have a look at this photo, alright, so what it looks like Eagle does to me is he is like this, right? That he's holding it down and that allows his elbow to come through like this, except his body is leaning forward and he's like this. So when he comes through, it is actually on that plane. He is in this powerful position here. Like where the elbow is aligned, the disc is flat, and the disc comes through and stays flat through and out. I try and do this, I don't have any power, and the disc comes out on a steep Annie, and this is where I feel like my swing should be going. This position here is the one that I want to copy off Eagle. That's the direction that I feel like I should be in.
Okay. All excellent observations. Let me flip my hardware around here. Okay, so there's a lot there. Let me see if I can remember all of it. I can't. No, I can. I can do it. Positive self-talk. I need a green disc, because that is the coolest color. Sorry, I'm all like matchy today. It's a little weird. Okay, so this doesn't actually matter. So let that go for now. It does matter in that it's easier for me to have my elbow here bending on this plane. Like so let's say I'm throwing flat. I'm throwing a flat shot with flat hips, which is not a thing we actually want to do. But right in your drill, you were like doing, something like this. Like, that's a C bass thing. So here, this is what we want to emulate to start. Yes, Eagle does this. Drew does this. A lot of really good players do this. This makes it easier to have the elbow here. When I do this, it's easier to have the elbow here. So that's what that's about. But when we start, I think it's easier to get this orientation and then keep your wrist here. So you're just going to keep, if I'm throwing flat, sorry, I'm leaning forward, you're going to keep everything on that plane. It's going to add a little bit more tension and stiffness to your elbow, but that's okay while we're learning and not throwing absolutely dead full power shots. So this is aligning your disc plane to your elbow plane. You want this. You don't want this, because if I throw here, it's not going to work, right? So what we're doing is we're simplifying the wrist having to do things during the throw. Sorry, a little too much light here. by artificially making the wrist stay in line with the elbow, right? So we don't have, if I were to suitcase, you'd get this. So you have to turn your wrist over during the throw. We don't want to do that yet. We want to make everything simple to start. So that's the first thing. Don't worry about copying Eagle's wrist yet. We'll do that later. About his elbow position, you are absolutely correct. He is in this position, kind of. He's a little bit lower, but he has his arm set up so that the plane that his forearm will take, rotating from his elbow, makes sense with his shoulder plane. So when you demo it, his shoulder plane is here, and his elbow plane is here. So his elbow is exactly on the shoulder plane. When you take that, lean it forward into a hyzer, note rear leg counterweight, that's exactly what he's doing. What he's doing that's a little more advanced is he's not rigidly on that shoulder plane. He's dropping his elbow down a little bit more and then doing the wrist thing and pulling the disc here and releasing it like that. So he has a little bit of external rotation from the shoulder joint at the hip. That's how you throw flat from a hyzer lean, or how you would throw anhyzer from a hyzer lean. So back to remembering all the things. For anyone else watching, Joey said anhyzer. He said an anti release. He actually meant a hyzer release. I talked to him about this because I was confused. So if you were confused, good job paying attention. So when you throw on a hyzer lean, you tend to get hyzer releases. That's fine for now. Later, you'll learn how to keep this good body mechanic with the rear leg extending out to this T-pose position at your follow through. You'll get that to happen with a flatter release, or you'll just commit to throwing understable discs that flip up an amount that is right for the shot shape you want. Was that all the things we wanted to cover? I think so. One more. So Joey, the problem that you're having is your shoulder plane is set up, let's say here, if we're standing upright, and your elbow plane is set up here. So those are off by like 15 degrees. So you're setting up your shoulder plane, you're saying, okay, I'm going to throw a flat shot, I'm going to throw here. But you're setting up your elbow to bend here. So those two combine to get a high reach back, a disc that comes down low, and then as this shoulder starts to go up, you come into an anhyzer. So you get a swoop, right? Because the elbow is here, the disc swoops. That'll do a couple of things. It'll cause nose up, and the disc going too high compared to where you wanted to throw it. It'll also cause early releases. And that gets complicated, but because you have all this power, it's I don't know how to explain it well, but it's you're not getting. It'll make more sense when we look at your clips. Yeah, maybe let's save it till then. But the short version is when you try to throw like eagle, you get better power, but that power is released late because the disc actually has the mechanics we want it to in terms of when it ejects from your hand. So when you bend over this way and get the throw to happen on hyzer, the disc comes out later and goes to the right and up. When you throw your normal way, you have a flatter reach back, right? So when you throw like eagle, you get here, or here, or here, and the disc goes boom and goes too far up and too far right. When you throw how you normally throw, you tend to reach back straighter, pull straighter, and then the disc comes out of your hand here. So here, my disc comes off the hand and there isn't really a lot of power. If I get the disc to go wham and come out here, it's going to have a ton of power, but it's going to go that way. So in your throw, you have an early release with low power and better accuracy. And when you try to emulate eagle, you have less of a straight line pull. So you're getting the disc behind you and then you're flinging it around this way. So you're like rounding a little bit, but there's more power there. So we actually want that mechanic. We just want to take it and put the accuracy back online. So I'll talk a little bit about how we can do that. But let's take a look at your first throw. I think that's where you're headed.
All right, so this first
Yes. Let's see, set
one is me actually just going to try and emulate Eagle and get in that position from Standstill. I wanted it to look like Eagle does. I want the disc to be flat. I want to be bent over. I want to try and get that swing plane perpendicular to the body, but have that wrist angle that's going to allow...
Okay, quick pause. So, things to be aware of. One point that I feel like I didn't make enough, and I'll give you a drill for this now. Your problem in your throw, Joey, is with the swoop, is that your elbow plane does not align with your shoulder plane. So I mentioned that, but I didn't talk about how to fix it. So shoulders being here and elbow being here doesn't work. I'm exaggerating. You're like half that bad. So what I need to do is exactly the drill that you demoed for me in the beginning of your video that I didn't play, where you're just here and doing that. You need to get your body to do this when you actually throw. You can do it as a drill. I saw you do it in that video, but you need to do more reps of this and then have a transition from the drill to actually throwing. So you're going to do the drill with a disc in your hand, and then you're going to do the drill while throwing, but you're not going to think about it like throwing, because the second you think throw, you're going to go, oh, okay, I know how to throw. Shoop, and you're going to use your old motor memory pattern, right? So we don't want that. So you need to go slow enough that you can pay attention to your elbow and keep it up like this. So don't do this for now, because that'll just make it more confusing. You can try it if you want to, but that's kind of what I vote. So you're just going to hold the disc nice and loose, keep it on plane with your elbow, right? So not here and on plane. So you're matching your shoulder plane to your elbow plane. And you need to convince yourself that you can keep space here. So like, imagine I need a beach ball. Imagine there's a beach ball like duct taped around your torso that holds your arm up. So you're just like here, right? And then you're gonna practice flinging your forearm around by winding up and then winding forward and just keeping this space here and here, right? So you can imagine like you can make a frame with your hand and fling your arm around like that. But you're just working on keeping this up and getting used to that feeling of space here. The reason you don't have space is because your body knows your elbow is stronger when you use this big muscle, your lat and your back, and pull it down to your side. So when you put your arm out here and say, okay, now I'm gonna do a thing with my arm, your body goes, okay, I know my elbow is strong when I pull it down here. So I'm gonna do that. And then I'm gonna try to throw a disc and it's not gonna work because there's no power here. So you need to like be aware that physics says you want your elbow out here. That's where power comes from, is having this long lever. It doesn't matter how contracted your lat is. Your brain thinks your lat is the most important thing. Physics knows the length of your lever is the most important thing. So here my lever is long, here my lever is now short, right? So you want it long, and just use shadow swings and little 100-foot putter shots where you just lean over and just go boop and throw it like that. So you're just keeping the elbow plane in line with the shoulder plane. It's just a calibration. And you can swing back, break the elbow, and swing forward. That's all you need to do that. It can take a long time, but once you understand it, it's relatively simple to accomplish. Okay, so back to you. And let's rewind a little bit because I forgot what you were saying.
Perpendicular to the body, but have that wrist angle that's going to allow me.
Okay, so the other thing is be aware that mechanically, standstills are different than full power shots, because in a full power shot, moving towards the camera, my rear leg has momentum towards the camera, and that momentum, the rear leg carrying from here to here, matters a lot, and that's what makes balancing and the brakes dynamically work. So if I'm throwing a standstill, I don't get that. right? Because this rear leg doesn't really have any momentum. So I can approximate it by driving the rear leg forward, which a lot of people are going to give me flack for, but deal with it. As a placeholder, it's okay to teach your body that you want to end up here. It's okay to intentionally move the rear leg into that position. Whether or not that drive of the rear leg into position stays in your full throw or not is up to you and a matter of opinion. But it can work. But just be aware that if you're trying to emulate Eagle and he's running up at 25 miles an hour, he's not. It's probably a little lower than that. But it's not quite going to work. So just be aware of that. Back to you.
But have that wrist angle that's going to allow me to get a proper, but have that.
Okay, so here, lots to see here. And it's that part of this stuff I was talking about with your early release. So another thing to be aware of here, and this is about elbow plane matching shoulder plane. When the disc and your elbow are in this position and they lift up towards your final reach back position, that will necessarily cause a problem, because it means the disc is rising up at peak reach back, not staying at the same height, right? So the disc is here and it's going up. Pop back to the video. And then as you start your pull forward, as your elbow starts to bend, the disc goes up quite a bit. Oh, hold on. So here, reach back, lift up into your final reach back position. The disc starts to flare there, comes up a little bit more. The elbow starts going down, which makes the disc go up more relatively. And then here, do this frame by frame, you start to stand up. Like here you have a good hyzer lean towards the camera and your shoulders, but because your rear leg isn't counterweighting it, we've talked about this on the Discord a decent amount, but I haven't talked about it yet in the video. Your posture changes because the rear leg isn't allowing you to stay in the hyzer lean. So we'll go over that towards the end when we get to your back view. But you start to stand up. Standing up makes the swoop worse, right? Because you already started with the disc low, it went high with momentum up, then the elbow goes down, starts to pull the disc, well, it pushes the disc higher, and then the disc pulls down as it comes around. Your body stands up, which pulls the shoulder up, and the elbow up, which sends the disc down even more, so the disc starts going down there. And then here you have a pretty early release, right? But it's kind of a mix between what I said for both versions. But you do have an early release here, right? You're not getting to a full hit, a full extension point, because your elbow is still pretty bent and your elbow isn't up on the plane. So you're doing part of a little bit of what the thing the Eagle does, where your upper arm is externally rotating towards the hit, but the disc is coming out too early, but it's still coming out late enough in the swing that it's on a hyzer and it's going to go too high. So it's not as cut and dry as I said, where you're either doing one thing or the other. You're actually doing a mix of both, so that's even more confusing. So if that's not clear, ask questions and we can clarify that. But here, even this late in the throw, the disc is high and then it comes down, but then before you release, it changes angles again and it's going up on that hyzer angle. So that's why it has a decent amount of wobble too. I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but because when the disc changes angles that drastically, very close to your release point, it's going to have wobble on it, basically. Okay, so let me check my notes. Yeah, so release timing is the big thing there. So let me touch on that for just a second. So that's why on the Discord I said I think it would be beneficial for you to throw a golf club. And you're a golfer, right? So you've got golf clubs around. Maybe go buy a cheap one. Don't throw your nice ones. But it makes a lot of sense that the first time you throw this, you'll go rah, and throw it, and it'll go like more than 45 degrees to the right. Because your hit point is not established as being like with a golf club, I feel like it wants to be like here. So it's like 30 degrees past 90, right? So I don't want to release at 90. I would if it was like a ball on a string, I'd want to release at 90 because then it would go straight forward. But there's some control in the wrist. I don't quite understand the physics, but you'll just throw a golf club, I promise. It'll slow you down and you'll feel that you really want it to like hit right here. If you were hitting a punching bag, you'd want to hit it here, not here, because that's not where your power is, right? It just makes sense. It'll show your body where you want your hit point to be. So when you try to throw like eagle, your hit point ends up being like too far forward. It's too close to 12 o'clock towards straight to your target, because when the disc comes out of my hand here, it's gonna go and go up and right a ton. And when you throw how you normally throw, it's kind of just, it just comes out of your hand because your elbow goes down, the disc is too close to you, and then you don't have the power from your elbow. The disc just goes and squirts forward, right? You get more power, boom, because you're getting closer to a hit point when you try to throw like eagle. What you want is a mix of those, where you don't want your hit point here, you want your hit point here where that golf club went, right? So if I'm throwing towards the camera, I actually want, boom, the disc to come out of my hand here. It's very hard to conceptualize, but when it works, the disc will pivot and come out of your hand straight from here. All right, back to you. Okay, so let's look at that throw again. So getting to reach back from below, again, we don't want to do that. We want to start on the plane, stay on the plane the whole time. So here the shoulder pulls the disc up, and then the elbow starts to go down off of that plane. And then the elbow and the disc switch positions, which puts the disc on hyzer. And you end up early releasing. It's kind of hard to explain why, but it's because the disc your whole body shape hasn't been given time to mature into the bent over hyzer release, rear leg counterweighting, hit at 10 o'clock position that we want. So another thing that I wanted to kind of clarify is you're trying to emulate a single position of eagles, and that's a great start, but you got into that position and you didn't have the throw go the way you wanted it to. So instead of thinking about emulating a starting position, we need to think about emulating the entire motion, which includes a rear leg counterweight and the elbow staying on plane. So that's why we build drills that help all of those things happen more often. Okay, back to you.
Proper, yeah. As you can see, it goes way high. It just swings through and goes up. I think a lot of that might be me lifting my body, lifting my shoulder angle. I don't know. You tell me. But that was this sort of.
So it's not really that you're doing anything wrong in terms of micromanaging the throw. It's just that's the way the disc is going to come out given the input that you gave it. So we just need to change the input a little bit. And again, we'll do that with drills.
Optimal position that I'm looking to get, what I'm aiming towards, but it's obviously not working at all. This is a more normal throw for me.
Okay, so in this one, what we're looking for is we're going to see a straighter pull where the disc is going more in a straight line, which is not actually what we want. We want the disc to go from out to in to out. Yeah, and that's, so in this throw, you have an earlier release. In your throw where you're trying to mimic eagle, you end up with a little bit later release because your hips are a little better and your swing plane is a little better in terms of your shoulders being on a hyzer, so that more closely matches your elbow plane, and you get a later release, which is a good thing in and of itself, but then you don't aim that release correctly because you're not used to that mechanic. So if you get used to the having the hit closer to 10 o'clock, then you put 10 o'clock where it should be relative to your target line and everything works. But so this is an example, and this happens a lot in people changing their form. You made a change that is good, you have a later release point, you have a stronger hit point, but you got a worse result because the disc didn't go where you wanted it to. So you might decide, if you didn't have such a lovely coach, you might decide that that's a bad change and you're not going to keep it. But you actually should keep that change. You just want to add another change on top of that and adjust your aim point accordingly, or just how you're lining your body up towards your aim point. Okay, back to you.
I noticed is that my reach back is still super early. You'll see later I actually go back to the park and try a couple more. What I noticed is that my reach...
So you say reach back is early. Mute you and look at that. Yeah, it probably is, but so this is another trap. Like, trying to make your reach back later is like not really a thing. If you just fix all your mechanics, it works better. So the reason your reach back is early is because you're using muscle to move the disc instead of using your feet to move the disc. So here your arm is straight. You're going to start pulling before your front foot is even really down. So and this is why your lat is overactivated. This is why your elbow is coming off plane. So what we need to do is back up a step and go back towards limp noodle arm mode, where you're not using your arm to do anything. You are using your legs to make your hips swivel. Swivel is a bad word. To make your pelvis rotate. And that is what is flinging your arm. So if your lat flings your arm, it's going to screw up your elbow plane, and you're going to get similar results to what you're getting now. If we change your footwork and your hip work so that your hip torque is being generated correctly and snappy and on the spot, your arm problems will kind of just go away, or at least get way easier to deal with. Back to you. Okay, so let's move forward. So looking at your, is that your second throw or your third throw? They're very similar. But then we get a back shot in here, I think. Yeah, next one's back, right? Yeah. So here we can see the same things happen from a little bit better angle, or a different angle. So, yeah, so it's, well, I'm going to draw a couple lines here. So there's your spine tilt to start, right? And then here's your spine tilt more towards release. So you've lost all of that. Take guesses from the studio audience as to why. Hint, it's the rear leg. So as we play forward here, watch the rear leg. It'll just move towards the standing leg, or immediately move left, even worse. So what we really want there is the rear leg to stay on that blue line as it continues to move forward. So if we had finished here, we'll make magenta what we actually want. We want the spine to have stayed here and the rear leg to have moved to here. So the rear leg has to actually move that way. This is why you see players like Wiggins and Albert Tom and that brilliant kid, what was his name? I think it was Blake. Young gentleman from your area that is throwing quite well. So that's what the standing up part is about. Let's get rid of those. And then we'll look at your shoulder plane as well. So your shoulder plane is shifting the same way your spine angle is shifting. But let's in isolation, let's just look at, here's the shoulder plane. And then see how the shoulder plane goes away, right? So then here the shoulder, and you're actually tilted a little bit the other way. So because the hips went forward, the leg went to the left instead of to the right, you lost your angle. So this is part of the problem. If your shoulder plane isn't consistent through the throw, you will lose power and all sorts of weird things will happen because you're putting an off-plane force on the disc. So when you throw like eagle, you keep a little bit more of this shoulder plane hyzer tilt, I would imagine, and that's why the disc goes up and right, because your hit point is then too late compared to how you normally throw, so it's coming out late. But one more thing here, so that's what your shoulders do, is you lose your hyzer tilt and end up on a little tiny bit of anhyzer tilt. But here, like, your arm kind of matches your shoulder tilt, but then there it absolutely does not. Right? So your shoulders are up here and your elbow is down here. So you're like 45 degrees elbow plane not matching shoulder plane, and that is why you have issues. 100%. That is the biggest problem. So it's hard to fix it. Like, I used to try to fix it by telling people, okay, just get your elbow up as high as you can, right? So just throw flat, that's fine, and put your elbow right here, right? That works well, it doesn't work. People can't do it because it's too hard. But what we should do instead is put your shoulder plane here, put your elbow plane exactly on that shoulder plane, and put your spine on a hyzer tilt that makes sense with that shoulder plane, and put your rear leg in line with your spine at the hit-ish, or definitely during the follow-through, right? So you end up with this shape while properly containing your hips behind the brace, which is also partly accomplished by the rear leg counterweight. So that's the fix now. And it's not a correction to what you're doing. Like me saying get your elbow up is a correction. Corrections aren't really good. It's better to just fix the whole assembly and think about it as a whole, right? So there you go. Back to you. We'll get your thoughts on this throw as well.
I'm well aware my feet can be better. I'm sure that's true. The biggest thing I'm having frustrations with at the moment is that swing plane, that arm alignment that just feels, every time I release, it just doesn't feel powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So the reason it doesn't feel powerful is because you're not getting to your hit. So because the elbow comes down, there isn't time for this to go to there, so it doesn't. It just goes and your hand comes off of the disc before there's extension, right? So you actually want, like top view, you actually want here, the rotation of your hips drives your elbow forward, boom, in, so that's out, in, out. It's the out and the extension of the out being opposed by, boom, your front hip moving backwards. That accelerates this in a way that accelerates this, and then your hit happens here and it feels powerful. So when you throw like eagle, you get closer to that timing because you're exaggerating this. You don't have a rear leg counterweight yet that'll just keep you there, right? So you would get hit, release. You get stand up a little bit, release here, and the disc goes that way. So there's a lot going on. There's just a shoulder plane to elbow plane coordination issue, but then there's also a timing issue of you tend to early release. And when you throw like eagle, you get that release a little bit later, but it messes up your aim. So there's like a lot of things that are all very interconnected that we have to kind of build an awareness of a piece at a time so that we can nudge them all in the right direction.
It feels like it could be better. This one, I later on in the day, I actually went to a different park because I was so unsatisfied with my timing. I'm interested to think my timing is better here in terms of, I guess not reaching back too early in foot placement. I had to throw a bit of a safari line at this park because the course was too small, so you'll see from behind, I'm throwing a big sort of hyzer.
So again, I would advise you to stay away from corrections, like the way that you're phrasing that, as much as possible, and focus more on changing the foundation of your throw. I think that'll be more productive. I spent a lot of time trying to offer people corrections, and the percentage of people that can actually execute those corrections correctly is astronomically low. So that's why I've pivoted to this more holistic style of kind of just helping you build solid fundamentals rather than like, so it's not going to be let's fix your swoop. It's going to be let's fix your hip mechanics so that the swoop goes away, right? But in the interest of answering your question, is your timing better? No, because you're at full extension here. So this, I don't want to see this. I don't want to see lifting into the final position, and I don't want to see your elbow staying at full extension. So here there's a little bend. There it's gone, still gone, still gone, still gone, still gone, still gone, 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 gone. Now the elbow starts to bend. That should be like 1 or 2 frames. If you look at someone like Drew Gibson or Trent from Slingshot Disc Golf, who throw with a very snappy back end on the throw, you'll see 1 or 2 frames, like 2 if you're lucky, where it looks like they're at full extension because they're really bouncing off of the rear of that reach back. And the reach back is timed with the actual engagement of the front foot on the ground. So not just the toe touching, but really the heel touching. So your timing isn't much different here. And we see the same things, right? So lifting into the reach back position, the disc continuing to go high after that, the elbow starting to go down, then those two switch. And here you can see the hips rising up over the brace because the rear leg is not actively counterweighting. So you kind of drive off of the rear leg. Not that that's bad, and it does happen a little bit, but it shouldn't be a focus of the throw. And then watch the hips here. They go up, 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 and they're always rotating forward. And then you kind of settle onto the heel there. So look at the rotation of the front foot. You're pivoting on the ball of the foot, and the heel moves backwards. So you're not bracing. You're kind of pole vaulting up over your brace. And that compounds the swing plane issue because now we have the shoulder, which is the point of origin of the arm swing, rising at the hit, which has the opposite effect on the hand and sends the hand down more. Still ends up in an upward trajectory because it's the bottom of the scoop happens before the hit. So you can manipulate that stuff. Like I did a video on a Finnish player named Rasmus that uses that effect to his advantage, but he's keenly aware of the timing, and he gets to his hit sooner than you do. So your hit is after the bottom of your swoop, so the disc goes up. When he does that, he gets his hit to happen exactly at the bottom of his swoop, so the disc doesn't go up, it just goes forward. But that's very complicated, but hopefully it makes some sense. Okay, let's take a look at your next throw.
I guess not reaching back too early in foot placement. I had to throw a bit of a safari line at this park because the course was too small. So you'll see from behind, I'm throwing a big sort of hyzer shot here. You can't really see the basket from where I'm throwing here, but I didn't have much space where I was. The only difference between these ones and the ones before, where I felt like I sort of waited until the X step to start coiling up. You might think, I just want to hear your opinion, whether you think that came across. One thing that I really want to lay out is the fact that from this angle, you can see that at the end of my throw, my body is standing up completely straight, which is obviously not what I want. I'm going to repeat the throw just here, or maybe I'll just stick a photo in of what my body looks like. But the thing I noticed is, no matter how I try to lean over and get in a powerful position, my body always ends.
Yep. So same thing as last time, and this is not a lot of hyzer lean. So I had exactly the same problem, like exactly the same problem. I knew, okay, Drew Gibson throws on a hyzer tilt all the time. I should throw on a hyzer tilt. I'm going to throw on a hyzer tilt. And then I would like lean over as far as I could, throw, and look at a video, and I was dead upright. Like I did exactly the same thing. So the reason is rear leg counterweight, right? So because you've already started hip thrusting forward, yeah, and you're getting a decent amount of your power from thrusting your hips forward, because now your spine angle is opposite. So like a bunch of things that you're doing all work together in a negative way to make your swoop worse. So I should make a list of them. It's the elbow plane, it's the hip thrust, it's the rear leg not being in a counterweight roll, and the timing of your hit matters a lot and has a lot of implications. Let's see where you actually release. So when you release, yeah, so you're popping your hips forward, which changes your spine angle and gets your rear leg out of a counterweight roll. It also compresses the space in front of your chest in a way that makes the swoop worse. So I think we could attack this by looking at this position instead of where Eagle started, right? So you've got your shoulder plane is here. Your elbow plane is here. Your spine is here. Your rear leg, let's go to the knee, is down. So what we want is an aggressive hyzer tilt in the shoulders, the elbow very closely matching that hyzer tilt, the spine at 90 degrees to the hyzer tilt in the shoulders, the rear leg in line with the spine, and the brace leg with a decent offset out here in front of the rear leg. So that's how I would conceptually sales pitch this to you. Is we're not going to worry about the position an Eagle is in when he starts his pull. We're going to worry about the position he ends up in at his hit and during his follow through, which is this one, right? Okay, so we'll play through the tail end of your video, see what your closing thoughts are, and then I will demo some of this stuff.
Right.
Oh, I think that's the end of it. Cool. Okay, so demos. So we do not want this one. We do want this one. So let's figure out how to get there. Okay, so the elbow thing is, it is a piece of the puzzle. We should do some work on calibrating that, but I think getting the hips right will fix a lot of the arm stuff. But to work on that, all you're doing is you're imagining a beach ball holding your elbow up. You can use your hand to hold it up here and just swing like this. Just getting used to that feeling, being aware that your body is going to want to use that lat to clamp down every time you throw. But then if you do that, you're going to get a swoop, right? So just fight that. Do this drill, do this drill, do this drill. Get used to building a frame here, holding that up, sticking your shoulder out. So it's not just here, but it's out. And I'm feeling, getting used to expressing power with my shoulder pushed forward and my elbow up. And when you can do that relatively easily and get some speed on your hand, keeping this space, then you're in good shape to grab a putter. Nice loose grip, like grab the flight plate, don't grab the rim. Grab the flight plate, keep your arm loose. Keep the disc flat with your forearm, in plane with your shoulder, and just throw little shots like that. Sorry, dogs upstairs. And just focusing on keeping the disc on the plane of the elbow, keeping the elbow on the plane of the shoulders. So that's that part. That fixes elbow plane versus shoulder plane. Then I already gave you links to, I didn't give you links, I told you to watch all the videos about this, keeping the rear leg on the same axis as the spine. So all the one leg stuff is that. You're just using the hips as a power source, lifting this one and dropping it. So that's half of the hip torque. The other half is this hip getting into the ground and then this hip going up and backwards because this leg is extending. So if you get this one going up and this one going down, you get a centered rotation around your spine. That can happen while the rear leg is coming forward and the hips aren't really moving. So the hips just go from here to there. Boom. It's a quick, snappy 90-degree rotation. That's the powerhouse that you add to with your shoulders torquing forward, that you add to with your elbow driving forward, that you add to with your elbow whipping out, slinging out on its own, and then another force multiplier on the finger rip. That all gets timed to happen right here at 10 o'clock-ish, and the disc will rip out towards the target. So the one leg drills get you the power from the rear hip and the balance to stay in that T-pose at the end of your throw. To stay here. Exactly like the young player that you showed me the video of. Yeah, so that's most of it. Then the only thing you have to add is what the front leg does, which I won't get into that yet. You got plenty of work to do getting this stuff figured out. So for now, let's just work on standstills and just one leg standstills for now. So take your toe, turn it 30 degrees backwards, get on your hyzer tilt, and just practice your beach ball drill holding the elbow up here. And then we haven't even talked about offhand, but your offhand can drop to anchor more. So that's where I would start you, is just getting used to, so we're recalibrating your elbow plane to be on your shoulder plane while you're balanced on a static front leg. So just do that, and then feel that the power comes from the rear hip dropping, boom, not from the arm pulling across, and certainly not from the lat pulling the elbow down, right? So what we're going for is just lift the rear hip as you extend the elbow backwards, drop the rear hand, drop the rear hip, let that drive the torso rotation, and let the elbow sling out on the shoulder plane. So start there, and let me know how it goes. Good luck, sir.